Hello. I'm Monty Cime. That's me. About a year ago, I put out this album, as you can see right here on the screen. It should be showing up for you guys. The independence of Central America remains an unfinished experiment, and it was kind of a big deal for me. I had made solo projects in the before Costco Boyfriend, which was my band before Cime, of course, under the name Syzygy. But this was the first one where like I kind of really knew what I was doing, like regarding recording and composition. And for me, it was like a big proving myself moment. After the kind of fallout that came from leaving that band, and we're all fine now, but it was just something where like I really had to prove to myself and to them, and kind of, I guess, you know, it's just kind of like I don't know, it's just a coming of age thing, I guess, right? And so this is what that was for me, kind of like like this is my big push. And I remember telling myself, and in some interviews at the time, where it's like, I had this very like absolutist, is that the word? Like mentality to it. I was very borderline about it. I don't think that's the right word to use. That's probably a slur or something. I'm sorry. Where it's like, if I don't make this, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. And it did pretty well, like a lot better than I would have expected in some ways. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot in the process, and I did the best I could. I did everything in my power to make sure it was as good of a release as it could be. And I still feel very like emotionally connected to it. Other issues? I mean, yeah, of course. A lot of them, intentions aside, I think there are issues, and intentions, like included, like there are some things that I could do better, of course. Um, but I think that's kind of like, how do I put this? Neither here nor there. I think as it stands, it's something where, like, the way I kind of rationalize it in my head is like, obviously I'm gonna kind of go past it in a lot of ways, right? Um, but for me, it's this very succinct, just meshing of storytelling, right? Like taking traditional folklore with like my own life personally, and like the present. Like I describe it as like the three branches, right, of the past, present, future, but also like introspection, reflection, and a call to action, both of the self, and like to an individual, like introspectively, that's from person to person, or sorry, intrapersonally, interpersonally, and societally, right? Like, what am I saying? Kind of the big picture, right? And so for me, like, it's gonna kind of always, I feel like I really hit that as best as I could. Um, and it's something where it's hard to do it to begin with. And I don't want to. I guess like I guess I was gonna say, I don't want to get too into that, but like, if not now, when, right? This is just me chatting. Like I've wanted to do videos more for a while now, and I saw my friend Cass Amai, who just put out this incredible EP in the 11th hour, doing this to her last album, like her debut mixtape. And I thought it was a really fun idea. And since this was like a little, a few weeks ago, and I knew that this was coming up, I thought, well, what better time to do it than now? Because like I said, I've been wanting to get into more video stuff. I don't know how edited this is going to be. I imagine there'll be some stuff here and there. But this is just kind of like, I guess, for people who are interested in kind of getting a little bit more of the intricacies. I talk a lot about it on my blog, cime.casa, like a lot of the in-betweens of it. And I still need to update that and get it to where where I want it to be. But this, I think, is going to talk about more so. I mean, I don't know, right? I haven't recorded it yet. I have just started, right? But I think we're going to be looking at, I guess, more of like the kind of the things that come to mind, right? Like instrumentally, right? As opposed to conceptually. Like, this reminds me of this. Oh, this came from that, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. So let's see. Do I have anything else to say? No, I guess not. I guess like before I start, I always want to say shout out DJ Roswell, who produced this. Really intensive process. I'm kind of a neurotic person when it comes to mixing. So both like shout out and also apologies. Like it was they did it better than I could, right? But also it was just a really stressful process, I think, for both of us. Um, from what he told me, he really liked working on it. So that makes me feel really happy, and he really liked the end result, and I'm really proud of the end result. Could it be better in a lot of ways? Yeah, sure. But like I said, that's neither here nor there. So, one last thing. I've known this for a while, but like I don't really care. I mean, like, how do I put this? The Spotify version sounds a lot different than the Bandcamp or CD master of it, right? And that's okay. Like, there's only so much I can do about it because I don't have the sauce. Like, I don't know that. But like a lot of people come to me and say, "Oh, this part sounds really bad. I wish you could have done it better." And I'm like, "Oh, well, did you listen on Spotify or on Bandcamp?" And they're like, "Oh, on Spotify. Why?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's why." For me, Spotify is just kind of a thing where it's for convenience, right? So that's how I always viewed it. Like if people really wanted to listen to it, they would, go out and find a FLAC or a MP3 on Bandcamp or something. But that's how a lot of people engage with music. Not full stop nowadays. So I guess I should fix that for the next ones, right? Like I made a wrong assumption. But yeah, okay. Let's go in. Starting with Compa. As you can see, I'm at 30 seconds because I was listening to it just to test out the audio levels. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it, I guess. So a couple people have asked, how do you come up with this? It's a 4 on the floor, 4/4 rhythm with a random 2/4 measure in there, and it's because basically I recorded the guitar first. You can hear it. If you don't know, it's looping. I recorded this loops, and I recorded the drums over the recording I had of that. I had it in my ear, and I just had FL open. I hadn't even imported yet, and I just played it over it until it was about as good as it sounded, and then I just looped that drum part over and over. You'll hear it loop again. This part, I had no clue what I was gonna do. I actually had I took this from something I was doing for a friend, a demo, but it was originally in 7/8. Maybe I'll be able to put that in right here. Me from the future. I'm not in the mood to play 7/8, but it was something like this. 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1. Something like that. But it ended up sounding really fucking cool. I mean, just fit like a glove. This is my friend Frank, El Café Atómico from Uruguay. We met through a mutual friend, and I thought he would just sound really good on this. I don't know who reached out to who, but we were like, "Oh, we should collab." And I was like, "I have just a thing," because this thing is like making weird psych, hip hop, like rock, like fusion, right? He just comes on this song with such a presence. I love it so much. Oh my god, that's so cool. In the right ear, I have a garifuna drum. That's a little tendency of mine for a while. I wanted to put like hand drums. This is the first song where I think it really comes together with everything. I have no clue where I got this idea for like a spoken word section from, but I can tell you these vocals and a lot of these kinds of vocals, I was really inspired by like children's music. It was just so poignant. A lot of people don't like it, but for me, I don't care. Like, I just thought it was so cool. Children's music tends to have such a unique inflection. I like this part because I start layering a bunch of synths and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Like you can hear, there's like multiple. I changed the chords a bit. It's really fun. First song I recorded on the album. One of the best, I would say. After all, I actually had that since January 6, 2020. And I just kind of messed around with it just so having to work for this. This is a spoken word bit.
But as they look to one another in their liberated lands of love, passion
turns to politics. Yep.
Their gaze turned inwards, and the dissolution had already begun.
I got the idea for the spoken word interludes, or like specifically like that from Aquí Le Payún album. Santa Maria de Iquique does something similar, and I thought it was so cool. I wanted to do that. I think they're done really well. This bit, this song, Friends Enemies. If you thought January 6, 2020 was like a long time to hold on to something, I had this like progression, and I even recorded like I originally considered it as like a progressive rock song. It's probably somewhere. This was back when I would record everything in Audacity during like my Syzygy days. And this was probably my sophomore year, so like 2019, 2018. Like 2018 probably, honestly. It was crazy. And it just so happened to work really well here, I think. I love the really blown out kind of bass sound. People say that like this makes their sub bass go fucking crazy. And I'd like to think that as kind of like an homage to the kind of like mixing that you see in a lot of like reggaeton and stuff like that, where like there's just so much ridiculous sub bass, you know. Fully improvised. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool. That's a baritone ukulele. I think I originally wrote the part for a baritone uke, and then I transposed it to guitar. I meant to put a guitar on this, but it just didn't fit. So I just kept the baritone ukulele in. Also did the drums on this. I don't know, some of the drum performances on this are just like so aggressively raw. I'm like, damn, how the fuck did I come up with this shit? Shout out to Roswell again for making this sound as good as it does, especially the drums. So tight. Nice little 6/8.
After multiple attempts to reconcile, their differences were far too great to overcome, and the union would fall. Let it be known, however, that it did not fail naturally, like an old
ceiba tree,
putting itself to rest after a long.
And then I mentioned Guanacaste. These are like just naming names of like really well-known Central American streams.
Tied himself to the trunk and was killed for it. He was right.
And of course, I do the deliberate like
a century and a half later. Someone who understood
like,
his vision
you know,
to be born in the spot
putting
where the peaceful table once stood.
Morazan
And his
with
name was
Guillermo Anderson side by side, which I actually spoke to Patrick Anderson, which was, you know, Guillermo Anderson is no longer with us, unfortunately. You know, his spirit lives on, and he's around all of us, right? You know. But I spoke with Patrick Anderson, and he was really appreciative of this song, and it really touched my heart. You know, I was just emailing him, you know, like, there's like a few people that like I would have been devastated if they didn't get it, or if they were like, keep working on it, kid, you know. And one of them would be was Patrick, and so the fact that he really latched onto it, you know, just made me feel really good. This song I actually had been working on 2020, 2021, I want to say. I wrote a demo during the era of Costco Boyfriend. Didn't go anywhere, but I re-recorded it and kind of gave it this new like life. To switch up.
So here's a fun fact for you.
This was also improvised.
Died the day.
Like I just kind of was reading about this on the spot, and I thought I should probably put this somewhere. I think this would probably fit on this song.
Isn't that just crazy? Like what a weird coincidence.
And this like melody structure is from a traditional Honduran dance called El Esquipuleño or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. It's something like that. I'll probably leave the title in the description. And Guillermo Anderson did a cover of that for the musical. It's called Francisco General Morazán Marcha desde la Muerte, right? Which is like posthumous release. And in a lot of ways, I see that as like kind of a what do you call it? This is like a sequel. This is like a prequel. That album was like a prequel to this one because this album, Compay, begins from the perspective of Francisco Morazán, kind of like facing down the necessity of like a war of independence, and kind of glosses over a lot of the rest. Friends Enemies picks up after his death, right? Or like with the dissolution, kind of seeing everything torn apart. Canción para Guillermo is kind of like the end to that era, right? Like paying tribute to both of their contributions, right? Side by side. And then Convicción, because his album ends with his death. It's an album about his life. Convicción begins, what is it, like 20, 30 years after the fact, 10, 15 years, with the national campaign, which was like a second war of independence in a lot of ways, against the filibusters, which were like the American mercenaries who wanted to set up a slave colony in Central America. Then there's this, sigue viviendo, solo aguantan tanto. It was so cool. I love layering like a bunch of organs and like basses to get this kind of like windy effect. I wanted to like make it sound like, oh, sampled an Einfeld 1853 Hickok 045. I'm sure a lot of the gun people know about that guy. He makes a lot of cool videos. He's like, sure, you know, I don't mind. It's loaded and ready. If you know, this was one of the last songs we actually recorded as Costco Boyfriend. And I adapted it for this. I was so nervous. I was so nervous because I was like, I don't know if I know they're gonna use the song, but like I need to do it better than them. So I had to re-record everything bit by bit. Which is why it has such a different version than like the officially released Costco Boyfriend one, or like their version that they put out as Sleeping Policeman. But I love it so much. It's such a crazy song. By the end of it, my old computer couldn't even keep up. Like, it was crazy. It was like 8 gigabytes. And this is before I realized you could turn off plugins and save space. It would send my computer to a fucking halt. It was like 60 hours spent on this track. It was so perfectionist. That's Crochet on electric guitar. Zach, before they had done anything. Really kind of them. On the right ear, I believe, you can also hear Frank El Cactus Antónico doing choir vocals again. And Aaron is doing drums on this because I just couldn't. It's too crazy. 5/4 to 3/4 to 5/4 to 3/4 to 4/4. I couldn't keep up with it, and even he can't. And honestly, it gives it this really fucking awesome feel. I mean, like, just so fucking DIY. Where it's like just barely behind sometimes. You can hear it messing up. I love it. I'm coming for the solo. Took this kind of like solo from something we did for Frank. Again, he comes up a lot, right? And he had like a collab album. And it was like a surf rock track, and I think 7/8. 7/8 keeps coming up, right? And I came up with something like this, and I just reused like this riff kind of like idea, this motif for the solo on this track. Cool, right? Love this part so much. It's so insane. Like, just bouncing. I try not to talk too much about ancestors and stuff like that until I think it's really prevalent, like connecting the past to the present, because I don't want to sound like one of those, like, I don't feel like I'm from here, I don't feel like I'm from there, you know, like that kind of approach to like Latin identity. I think that's kind of hacky. But for this one, I thought it was pretty prevalent because, again, it's a repeat of the first War of Independence. And for Canción para Guillermo, it's comparing Guillermo to Francisco Morazan, right? Like as a vessel, or like kind of a visage, is that what you say? Kind of like a living testament of like their message. This is another one that I thought was kind of cool. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. Mother I had lying around also Costco boyfriend days. I don't even think I recorded anything new except for like all the talking, which I got that from somewhere. I don't remember what, but something inspired me to do that. Like the idea of like a bunch of, I know. It was Ruben Blades' Maestra Vida. There's a lot of like interludes that are just like people talking in like a bar. It sounds bustling, and I wanted to recreate that, kind of like as if you were in an interlude in an opera. There's some conversations you can parse, but I was just kind of like freestyling everything, of course. And of course, this is about my mom, who's disabled, right? Paraplegic. That's why I say the best she could do without control below her waist. So it's just a dedication to her, because, I mean, how can I make an album about Central America without dedicating something to my mom, right? Now for the best song on the album. Yep, that's my opinion. A lot of people don't like it, but I do. I fucking love it. I think it's the best, like it's the culmination of everything that's going on. Just like the turning point. I mean, obviously it's a turning point after the interlude, right? But so, some interesting facts you might like. I wrote the lyrics to this in about 10 minutes, front to back. Recorded the whole song in about a day. Less than a day. No, like a couple hours. From like 6 o'clock to like noon. 6 o'clock in the morning.
Just like Ochoa said, we open our doors.
Everything.
Give them food and call friends.
You know, I don't know how many of you guys are religious. I considered myself pretty religious.
How could they know? Unfortunate.
And for me, it's something like where there's so much meaning and depth, and I don't mean to sound like a fucking asshole saying that, but like, I impress myself with it in a lot of ways, that it feels like I kind of have to give gratitude to something bigger than myself, because everything kind of comes together in this perfect way. The bass, the vocals, the drums, which were also done by me.
What am I even doing here?
I don't know, man.
Too much money to get the help I need, yet I'm too poor.
Fun fact,
so what am I doing here?
So,
Explode my mind, I never
the album was recorded on like a Behringer mixer, and I kind of fucking regret it, because it was like $200. You know, it's these little annoyances. Like, the right channel would always be louder, no matter what you did. It would always be a little bit louder. The right channel would always be a little bit louder than the left channel. It was so weird. More importantly, like for example, when I was recording drums and I would mic it up with 4 or 5 mics, they export as one stereo file, which is cool. You know, like you can make it work. Ultimately, it's about the ear, not the gear, right? But like, it was really limiting, and that's the one thing I kind of like look back like, I wish I could give in these drums a bit more room. They're just so like fucking sick. But I think I did for the most part pretty well.
Just in a different way.
I would listen to this song for fucking hours, man. The vocals are so good. I don't care. I know a lot of people like them.
I know I could never work an office job.
It's supposed to be very like,
Running out of time.
you know, like saying the saddest things in the happiest way possible, right?
I don't even know.
I
if
also
this
took
audience,
inspiration from like children's
anyone
vocals on this,
even care
and
to
like
hear
doing the
mine
backup vocals
at
to kind of
all.
like take away from. I know that's for certain, like, but a lot of people don't like that. That's okay. This part is so cool. I believe that the spoken word bit that I did on that, like, I waited until I had this up for like 3 days to kind of give it really the authentic cadence. And, that really was how I was feeling at the time. I think I wrote that down. Maybe I didn't. I don't think I did entirely. A lot of it was improvised. But still, man, just like what a horrible time. It's really weird looking back and listening to a lot of this, because now I'm so disconnected, but like, I can tell you from living that, like, holy shit, it was so bad. Don't know how I did that snare roll. I don't know. I genuinely have no clue. So fucking tight. Missed. I meant to do a crash for every one of them. Missed it, but most people don't even know. I think it's pretty cool, like in the DIY way, right? As for most of it. And then the fade out. Oh shit! I should have probably said. I forgot. I had planned like a final chord, but I forgot what it was. So I just dicked around for a couple extra seconds. But it ended up being okay. So obviously inspired by like gospel. It's supposed to be like very subversive. I mean, you could tell by the lyrics, right? Like, it's about very anti, like, American evangelical, like. Aaron does drums on this, too. Fucking kills it. I love how everything just barely is off. I'm trying to do something like marchino, like, Brazilian marching music, but also like salsa. I think it was a really good, like, attempt. Do I think I succeeded? I think I got closer than I did maybe on like the Costco boyfriend efforts. I think this is something a little bit, like, it's not quite there, but I think it's pretty good. I mean, some people said it was like their favorite, so like, I can't complain. And the bass line is catchy. It's only like, 3 minutes. So, if people don't like it, it's very quick and painless. Boring. I like a lot of the layering, like with the aux percussion I did on this. I made it in my intention, because like we had this song on Costco Boyfriend EP, Cupertino, that was like in this style, but like the aux percussion make no sense. It's not perfect, like you can hear it kind of like go out of time a little bit. Honestly, I think it's pretty cool. Like, and again, in a DIY way, right? That's my justification for everything. But yeah, I like this one. I think it's pretty good. I remember Aaron told me when we were first starting to do live shows, like, when we get like 5 people, we should do this song. And it was like, yeah, that's a good idea. We were just 2 of us, though, doing the first live shows. And now we're to the point where, like, it's a feasibility, It's crazy to think about that, how much can change in a year.
Unfinished.
This was, I think, the last set of lyrics I ended up writing.
Region liberated, but its people estranged. Started with
I got-
our gods, now our gods are drugs.
That
we
part-
sacrifice each other for their blessings.
I got from a tour guide
Never too
for
late
the
to
Mayan
change.
ruins in Honduras.
You can always rewrite your
It was really poignant. He was talking about how, sacrificing, like human sacrifices during the Maya the Maya civilization, right? He's like, it's not that far when you think about it. We still do it. It's just that the new gods are drugs. And that really stuck with me. For me, this song was like trying to capture, I guess, the sentiments of every other song, kind of putting them to this one bit. Sorry, I'm just like thinking, like, it's been so long since I've listened to this song in particular. I was inspired by like Punta, but like making it slow and I guess more edgy, right? Obviously going for like the penultimate like operatic like narrative track, right? I like this switch up a lot, actually. So, this makes me think. I hadn't listened to Exuma, the Obeah Man's like debut, the album, Revision, I think is what it's called. I mean, that's the final song. I didn't listen to it until after this album was done, and like I'm kind of glad because this song is already kind of like that. And if I knew that song was a thing, I would have like literally just made it that, or I would have been like, this fucking sucks, I gotta scrap it because this is such an obvious like kind of homage to that, right, in a way where it just feels really cheap. Similar thing actually with Compay. I found this song by this brother sister group, Beans and Toast, that was a Costco boyfriend, also Costco boyfriend, a lot of little bits in here. I was like saying, there was this brother-sister duo from like the 60s in Colombia called Ana and Cime, I think. And they had this song called Café y Petróleo, which is same thesis, same genre of like music, like psychedelic beat music, right? And I would have been like, I'm not making this song because it was so similar. They honestly ate me up too. It was fucking crazy. But anyway, enough about this. Just inside.
Just sit inside. Just sit inside. Just sit inside. Just sit inside.
Interesting fact. So the vocals on that last bit were all like, they were supposed to go like one channel to the other, like Kanye West on that song, what is it, like Blame Game? Where like they're just constantly doing weird shit. But for some reason, they didn't happen in the main export. And I was just okay with it. It wasn't that big of a deal. This was all DJ Roswell, this little bit right
Maybe
here.
someday we'll look back. New tomorrows will be the years of old. Choosing the right path and walking down it.
This part was so fucking hard because this was like at 200 beats per minute, like 250.
Or maybe you look back and turn to a pillar of salt, punished for your
and I was like
hesitation.
reciting it
Who will you
to
blame?
the BPM.
Who will
right,
you
to
name?
make
Who
sure
will
I
be
was
at
in
fault when to
time.
rescue your lane? Who will continue your legacy or does it end there? Are you fulfilled? Are you insecure?
Yeah.
If you pass away tomorrow, would you leave any
Instrumentals.
regrets? Would you leave any unpaid debts? Would you leave behind any trace of who you were for all who come next?
And
This may seem pretentious, but I promise it isn't. Look at the title.
for some reason,
it's
it's because I
if you've been
actually
listening, the question
had
is
to,
obvious. It seems so. Lastly, as we
the
learn
word?
its intent, how am I supposed to celebrate with laughter and merriment when the independence
automate
of Central America is
the
still just an
demo, so I
experiment?
had to listen for like a minute to get to that point. And of course it ends. I got a lot of questions about that, which was really weird. This is the time for me to talk. Like, why does it cut off? Is this on purpose? And I can't ever say this to people, right? Because I'm not a dick, but like it makes perfect sense when you like listen to what's being said in like the context of the album. So I was like, yeah, this minute of silence, which if you listen, if you listen, this was a recording of my piano organ, like the fan going off idly, kind of as background noise. It goes on throughout the entire album, but this is really where you can hear it. And at this point, like sometimes you can hear it with like specific headphones, I guess, or like if you have it up enough, you can hear. I'm mixing. I think at this point I'm mixing "Song for Guillermo." You can hear it. This is something I composed kind of like in a night and just took the best recording I have of it. Kind of the best, I think, representation of kind of the attitude of the album, where it's like, oh my god, is everything about to fall apart? It's making me really fucking anxious. There's little bits where you can tell they're not perfect, little misarticulations. Or like you can hear me kind of leaning forward, like in the chair. I'm on the same chair where I recorded it. Isn't that crazy? I can hear me moving, or like holding my breath or breathing, kind of like in anxiety that I'm gonna get the good take. Cause I didn't like splice anything. This was all one. Yeah, like that. That's not supposed to sound like that, but kind of just leaving it to chance, right? It's kind of aleatory, right? Like I had an idea for the composition, but it kind of ends up taking its own form. And I really like it, actually, kind of, how it ended up sounding. Don't think it's perfect, but that's also kind of the point, the thesis statement of everything. So, that actually reminds me, going back to Patrick Anderson, right? He said that he liked it, but like, he thought it was an interesting decision to take, like specifically how it ends, you'll hear. He said, like, considering it's supposed to be like a reflection of the independence of Central America, right? Remaining an unfinished experiment as a title. It's the album title. It's the song title, right? He said, like, it would have been interesting if you, like, didn't resolve it. He compared it to Schubert, I think, statement of like a unfinished symphony. And for me, I ended up saying, you hear it, right? The resolution, of course, hold up. What happens? Okay, it ends. I'll finish this and I'll give a few more thoughts and then I'll be on my way, right? For me, I think I said something to the effect of like, you're right. It is an interesting decision to make in that context. But for me, I see that that resolution as like a representation of people like Guillermo, right? Of people like Francisco Morazan, right? It's bittersweet in context too. It's very like hazy. It's not wholly like tonic, right? If I'm to say it in like musical terms, there's a bit of like a cloudiness, right? An ambiguity to it. Right? And I talk a lot about choosing the right path, right? And these kind of, we have the path, like we have the choice in front of us. That's the hazy resolution. We just have to be the ones to kind of make it, right? And that's why I specifically did it. But I thought it was a really good point. Kind of the thing where it's like, yeah, I probably should have, but also that was my interpretation of it. And I think it's a good one. I think they're both really interesting and valid. And I was really like, I can't, I love the guy. I love Patrick Anderson. He's like I said before, I'm just really happy that like he in particular liked it and like got what I was going for. Let's see. Do I have anything else to say? Kind of, I guess, in closing or wrapping it up. I think that, how do I put this? Eventually, I would like to kind of remaster it because kind of there's like what I'm going for here, I think works really, really well. And there's a lot of the conceptual stuff that I think goes over a lot of people's heads. and like that's fine. Like for example, people don't know this. I guess this might be the first time I remember talking about it. But like because the album is supposed to be like a chronological kind of like following me as like I'm going through a year, right? Following the classical boyfriend breakup until, I guess where I'm at now, right? As now as in when this album was, being being made. With a lot of the songs kind of being written in real time, like by the bunches, being kind of like I'm the lowest point of my life, right? I made a conscious decision to kind of to make the parts that were more like I'm doing okay, like more hi-fi, and then really bring like the saturation or like the lo-fi bits of those out more. Like for example, Conviction, it's so fucking noisy. By the bunches is very noisy, right? Let me think if there's anything else that I wanted to bring up in particular. Oh, Friends Enemies absolutely was another one. And then you get to like 200 years and it's somewhere in between, like there's actually like a progression, like it changes from song to song. Like I mean, Compay to Friends Enemies goes from pretty hi-fi to very lo-fi. Canción para Guillermo somewhere between. Convicción way low. Mother somewhere in between. By the bunch's lowest point, I'm pretty sure. That's why it sounds just like, even though it's this very like clean song, instrumentally speaking, it's dirty as hell if you really kind of give it a listen. But I was saying, I kind of want to remaster it because, like, I like a lot of the ideas going on here. I think that just some of them might need a bit more attention, and I don't mean like in the let me re-record some of the instrumentals. I would be very adverse to doing that, and if I were to do that, I would rather just do like a live album. I think more so just capturing a lot of like the energy. I think there's like a little, like it still sounds kind of like I'm not quite there yet. Even with DJ Roswell, who, like DJ Roswell made this sound as good as it does now. Like, let me articulate that. Made it sound as good as it does now. It would not sound as good as this if it weren't for that. But I think there's some more to be said. I think there's some more to be done. But for now, and I think for the foreseeable future, kind of as like a starting point, what I see this as is kind of like my biggest inspiration in every point, I think, except like directly musically, like compositionally, was Hang by Foxygen, the like their Baroque album. Those guys are freaking geniuses and like hugely influential on a lot of like a lot of the scene today in a way that comes across as very understated. I was calling them recently like the Velvet Underground of the past decade. Either you get them or you don't. But if you got them, like Wise Blood had her record produced by Jonathan Rado, both of them, and she's fucking huge and influential in her own right. A lot of like, there's this whole like they call them Foxygen alumni, like Lemon Twigs, who are fucking huge now. They were actually on Hang doing some things, I should say, like drums, I believe. I believe Drug Dealer, like just a lot of the psych scene is absolutely indebted to them. I mean, shit like Okay Human, by Weezer is like, oh my God. And like, I honestly feel like they're pretty responsible for like a revival in like Baroque or Chamber, because that album sounds fucking phenomenal. But that's not even what I'm getting at, because I don't want to ramble on too long about this. Their thing was like making an album that's like outwardly one thing, like this sunshine kind of like think of like John Congo's kind of Life in the Mind of a Goldfish. Is that what the name of the title is? Like, or like John Cale, right? Kind of Baroque pop album, but inside it's actually like a satirical work, right? Like saying the saddest things in the happiest way possible. And you look into what the album is really about, and it's about like the nature of Hollywood and like alienation, social alienation that comes from like wanting to become famous, and like the kind of cultural death that like commercialization represents, right? Like there's this line in that, I think, on a song called America, right? You know, like it's supposed to be the smoking gun, kind of like there's more to this than meets the eye. It's like our heroes aren't dead. Sorry, our heroes aren't brave. We've just got nothing to lose when you're living in America, right? The neoliberalism of and how that erodes kind of like safety nets, right? And leads people to like, illicit activities or, joining the military and stuff like that. And they know that. But for me, like, that album was like, it's weird because it's panned really fucking hard, but also it's something where I did a lot of research into it and no one was talking about it as a satire. Like, no one seemed to pick up on it. And so I guess I should have known, or like, no, it's not that I should have known. I kind of knew, like, I knew going into it, like, I'm making a really niche album, right? That you really have to dig into. And I thought, like, people are gonna want to engage with that. And it's not like I'm saying this is why people don't necessarily like it. This is why it's not as big as it is. No, I mean, like, I think there's a lot of things that could be fixed with it as well. But what I'm getting at is that if I'm making an album and that's my baseline, a super dense album that people didn't like to begin with, and that I only like, I'm kind of asking for it, right? That's just hubris, right? Flying too close to the sun and shit. So that's how I kind of see it, like kind of a cult classic kind of a thing. And with Hang, like I feel like, with time people are going to get it. And I think as I continue to make more stuff, it's going to make more sense. I hope. That's just me speaking kind of because I see this as my baby. I can never speak badly of it, right? I can't. But that's how I see it. And I'm planning on releasing something new soon. In a lot of ways, I think it's kind of like this, like it expands upon what's going on here instrumentally, conceptually, right? This is one thing, right? This is always going to be one thing, like where it's this huge, like multifaceted, multi-layered, like an onion, right? Concept album about myself and about history and about my place in that and kind of my own struggle, right? But that is just not accessible to people, right? But I think people will start to appreciate like the specifics of like what this does specifically that what I'm doing next doesn't, like the writing, like the multifacetedness and like the symbols and like the iconography and the repeating and blah 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 blah, right? It's all very operatic, right? It's very theatrical. And that's how I feel about it. This was The Independence of Central America Remains an Unfinished Experiment. Thank you for joining me on this very special day for my first, I guess, not first, right? Not my first, but my most recent baby. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any comments, any suggestions on the production of this video, like audio, it's my first one. So I welcome that a lot, actually. I'm trying to figure it out myself. So if you have anything, you just want to chat, let me know in the comments. If you liked it, like it. If you want to see more of whatever I'm doing, whether it's stuff like this or the music I'm putting out soon, as I say in one of my recent live sets. So too soon for fucking comfort or something like that. Monty Cime. I'm Monty Cime. I don't know. How do you end a video? Okay, bye.